You know what makes a really, really good cybersecurity engineer? Somebody who has tinkered with everything down the line and knows where the problem is going to crop up or could crop up because, this is how that thing works. And if I do it around with this combination, I can break in or somebody else can break in, which means that you can now go and make that thing really, really secure. Whereas somebody who just read the books wouldn't even know that existed.
Our guest today is the founder of the Tab Geeks IT Professionals Network and is an IT director. He hosts the #1 Google Workspace podcast, Google Workspace Recap, as well as supporting IT support, and is expanding his network to include shows on SaaS and cybersecurity. He speaks regularly on tech panels and contributes to multiple publications. Please give a warm welcome to Jesse. Welcome to the show, Jesse. Do you mind just taking a few minutes and kind of introducing yourself, what you do for a living, and how you entered the field?
Sure thing. I hope I can fit it into a couple of minutes here. First of all, thank you for having me. Great to finally be on the show. I sound like, a long-time listener, first-time caller. I've been watching your show for a long time.
Thank you.
I got real deep into all of the awesome YouTube technology content that's out there in the last couple of years, and I got subscribed, notification bell for every single one of them, and now I have my own channels as well. So let's see where to start. I guess we'll get into the whole long tail of the career later on, but by day, I have been for the last several years a IT director / manager, in charge of IT strategy for a multifamily real estate company. So owner operators of apartment complexes in about 100 locations across 3 states. And in the last year, I took a step back from that because at the same time, I had simultaneously started a company called Tab Geeks, which I've got my swag there, which is a conference company for IT professionals, specifically at small to mid-sized companies like 1,000, 2,000 people, that kind of thing. And COVID kind of put a stop to that, and I pivoted into content because one of the one podcast that I had started with, which at the time was called Supporting IT Support and is now called Heroes of IT, was doing really well. And I was like, hey, this is pretty cool. I like doing this. And so then that grew into another podcast, and then took all of them onto YouTube, and it's all been under the Tab Geeks brand of creating content to help other IT professionals. I've always been a huge fan of continuous learning. I did not go to university or get a degree in IT. It's always been self-taught, community taught, and I've tried to wave that flag as much as possible and to help out as much as I can, because everything I know is from learning from other people such as yourself. So that's kind of the rallying cry there, and that's me in a nutshell.
That's so cool. I myself, I college dropout. I am very much community taught, and that's one of the messages I try to strive, and just much like you, is try to kind of wave that flag. Like, you don't have to get a college education to be super successful in this IT field.
Yep.
And I think the requirements we're seeing for that college education are starting to melt away quite often. So really quick though, I want to kind of dive into more of your IT director role. Do you mind kind of talking about what that looks like on a day-to-day basis?
Sure. I actually, a couple of years ago, I did a tweet, a tweet vlog, but not the video side of it, just a day in the life of what that looks like. And it's very different now than what it used to be. Real estate as an industry as a whole is almost so low tech that it's almost anti-tech. And the people that, and I'm not talking buying and selling homes, I'm talking, a management company that also owns all of the properties. And, a lot of the people that are there are, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Or I've been doing it this way for 25 years, get off my back, go away. And that was, it was a business that didn't really invest in IT. And when I came on about 8 years ago, just as a mid-level IT guy, they were still using penny and fork computers running Windows 7 and Exchange 2003 and hand filtering spam. And I was just like, no, not okay. And so the first thing I did was move them over to, well, at the time it was Google Apps for Work, but it has now been G Suite and now Google Workspace, and started migrating people over to that, but to the effect that I had to kind of sneak it in. So I was talking on another podcast last week telling this similar story here of how we adopted Workspace. I didn't tell them that it was Gmail. I let them continue using Outlook. I just reconfigured it. So the email came from somewhere else. They had no idea. And then I started started organically mentioning it to people. Oh, by the way, this is in Gmail and so on. They're like, ooh, Gmail, can I use it in Gmail or do I have to use it in Outlook? I was like, you're my A team. Let's go. And so that started organically growing, and that's how we got into that area. And so, one of the lessons that I learned from that and the strategy that I was taking there is, okay, with people that are so resistant to change, especially when it comes to technology, you have to kind of show them the beautiful wonderland that can be when you adopt cloud technology and what that looks like. And the fact that, you can still continue working outside of the office if you are on the road, if you are out on a property. Again, there's 100 locations here. Granted, back then the company was about 80% smaller, but still there was a lot of travel being done, and everything was being hand couriered or entered in by hand from tape recorded notes throughout the day. And I was just like, it doesn't have to be like this. Like, we have the technology, literally, it exists, and this is 7 years ago, and over the years, it's just been kind of working to get them to adopt that. And so, a day in the life back then was very different because it was a much smaller team, a lot less investment in cloud technology and things like that. Today, thanks to COVID, now the team is totally remote. We have a guy in Minnesota, who's on the team. That never would have happened before COVID. The majority of the company is working remote still. We do have offices on site for those individual locations, but they're small. They only have 2, 3, 4, 5 people in them. And the operations side for running IT is now very focused around just me sitting down in front of my computer in the command center and making sure that I have eyes on tickets and chat and what's going on and our systems up and what's broken and who can't get in, and prioritizing and putting out a couple of fires here and there. Recently, we've been battling the corporate office firewall just melted down. Palo Alto, fancy schmancy. From 5 years ago, we put it in because back then, even still, we were all right. We're hosting our own applications, file servers, things like that. Needed to be up. Now I've gotten rid of most of that, but we still had the Palo Alto, and then it totally melted down. I was like, why am I bothering with a device that is so complex? I hardly know how to use it for something that is, basically a home network at this point because they need internet and it needs to be secure. And so I eventually ended up ripping it out and putting in a Ubiquiti Dream Machine, the UDM SE, and building out the network on top of that because it's simple, it's straightforward, and we use it at all of our other 100 locations, so we know it really well. And so that's kind of, the day-to-day here is going into those different areas, focusing where I'm needed and helping out. And so for me, even today, as I mentioned before, I took a step back. I'm no longer the head of IT. I gave myself a demotion, and I hired somebody to be the IT manager, IT director, because I wanted to focus on my own consulting on Tab Geeks, as well as making content, so YouTube and the podcasts, and eventually, hopefully, get back into the conference business once we build the audience back up after that. So that's kind of what the day in the life looks like, from the management perspective. And for me personally, most recently, because I've taken a step back, is okay, I still maintain the most seniority when it comes to IT problems. And since I've now taken a step back, it's actually been a bit liberating. And I mean, I hope the rest of the team doesn't listen to this, but I don't have to deal with management crap anymore. Like, I can just sit down, put my head down, and go deep on a problem and fix it. And then move on to the next thing and not get interrupted 85 times. It's wonderful. I'm loving it. So that's kind of me in a nutshell in the last, decade of what's been going on.
That sounds so like, oh guys, that sounds like so much fun. And it's very motivational. And, I can understand that kind of the liberation you get from being able to take a step back and just be able to work problems. And that aspect is super cool. Do you mind kind of telling us like, what got you started in the field? Why did you get into IT? Why did you decide to live this crazy lifestyle that we know as IT?
I know nothing else. When I was 3 years old, I had a toy truck die, and my instinct was to rip it apart and figure out why it didn't do the blinky lights and make the engine sounds that I really liked. And somehow I managed to put it back together and fix it. So that set me on the path, and it's just been there the entire way. I started out doing this when I was in high school. I started my own company locally, fixing computers for friends and neighbors. And then from friends and neighbors, it was word of mouth to other people in the school and other families. And then from there, it was local businesses, and sometimes they needed a website, and that was in the HTML, God knows, early days before CSS was a thing. And
I remember those days.
GeoCities websites and whatnot, and very underpowered, terrible computers, but we've come a long way. And then from there, just kind of building out, continuing on the support side. And when social media became a thing, I was pretty good at that for a while. So I was like, hey, I'll offer this as a consulting practice as well. And then I got hired full time to do that and took 4 years off from doing IT stuff, which was stupid. I should not have done that, but that's, we all make mistakes. We all make decisions. And I ended up being that it did. All right. It wasn't stupid. It was a career diversion, but I learned a lot about social media and production that I'm still using today and honing those skills. And then now that I'm doing content, it's kind of all come together. I know, squarey thing goes in the squarey hole and circle thing goes in the circle hole, but lighting and microphones and ambiance and all of that now with technology and computers allows me to do everything that I'm doing. So, we never know where the journey is going to take us. The key here, I think, is taking things along with us and being able to utilize them along the way.
Nice. Now, if you were to go back and other than tell yourself not to take that 4 month, the 4-year hiatus, what would be your number one piece of advice you'd have for yourself?
Start out at the bottom doing help desk. Don't try to just bite it all off and go straight into consulting on your own. If you've never done this before, if you've already been doing it for a while and you've been doing the consulting thing on your own, great, continue and maybe take on some larger clients by yourself, on the side or as part of what you're doing, but also get a lot of experience in a lot of different areas because I've been working with the same company for 8 years now. And, I'm talking to some other people in IT and there's a lot that they're talking about that is handled differently that is both kind of mind-boggling. It's like, well, why would you do it that way? But also really interesting to see the perspectives. And I think that one of the things that really helps to catapult somebody forward in their career is learning from all those different perspectives and getting hands-on with lots of different types of devices and categories of devices. I mean, IT in general is enormous, and it is now impossible to do it all. Once upon a time, there was the IT guy, and he just did everything IT. And I mean, he
lived in the basement and smelled of old pizza boxes and dirty socks.
Exactly.
And you never saw him when the fluorescent lights were on.
Yeah. And that world has changed completely, and COVID accelerated us approximately, what is it? I think Satya Nadella said during the pandemic, a decade of technological adoption that we jumped a decade. We are now a decade further. Trying to figure out the best way to say this of where we were before, and it would have taken us 10 years to have gotten to this point if we just continued on the normal path. And that's enormous, and that's technology was already steamrolling over everything, and now it's just everywhere, and there's so many different layers and levels of whether it's all the way up to the top, you're wearing a DEF CON hat, cybersecurity, or just how do you make the things plug in and work all the way at the bottom. Like, there's so many different areas that you can go in and specialize in. So I would say just try a lot of different things and don't feel like, okay, it's I have to specialize. I have to be a cyber analyst, and I can only do things that can get me to there. You know what makes a really, really good cybersecurity engineer? Somebody who has tinkered with everything down the line and knows where the problem is going to crop up or could crop up because, this is how that thing works. And if I do it around with this combination, I can break in, or somebody else can break in, which means that you can now go and make that thing really, really secure. Whereas somebody who just read the books wouldn't even know that existed. And that's what may set you apart down the road.
Absolutely. Like literally just this afternoon, I was asked by one of my fans that, hey, I really just want to go for the Security Plus. But you know, in your past videos, you mentioned I should go get a CCNA first. Why do you feel like that? I'm like, you have to understand how the network works before you can protect it. You know, you have to learn to crawl before you can walk, in a sense. You know, you have to understand how IT works before you can even learn how to protect it. So you're 100% right. The best security professional is one that has had their hands in everything else before they've even begun down the security journey. 100%. That's nail on the head. Now, I want to talk about your different I lost my train of my words there. Sorry.
Okay.
I want to talk about your different content creation ventures you have going on, because you have quite a few different resources and shows out there that you're doing. Do you mind kind of like touching on each one of them, and what are they?
Yeah, sure. My pleasure. So a while ago, I decided I didn't need sleep, and I was just going to, produce a crap load of content. No, honestly, what happened was, as I stated earlier, I had started my first podcast, and it had been doing really, really well. And the reason why I started the podcast was because I've taken that methodology of wanting to touch a lot of different things and, tinker and learn from all the different areas of IT and play with. And that's given me a lot of opinions about things and a lot of experience, a lot of things. And I'm always, like many other IT people, the guy that everybody comes to ask for. And I was like, I want to be able to share this. And I was thinking, all right, well, I could do blogging, but, sitting down and typey is not really like I'm a fast typer, but, that's a different kind of mindset that I do have, but not in terms of being able to sit down and just blog and blog and blog. I have friends who are bloggers professionally, and I don't know how they do it. But I do talk a lot, and I talk fast because I'm from the East Coast originally, and we just zoom right. I live in California now, and people are like, dude, slow down. Yeah, you don't need 2x for this episode, folks. You can listen to it on 1.2 or 1.3. But anyway, so I was one of the conferences that I had hosted. We were doing one of the after parties because we of course, you got to do an after party at a conference. And one of the guys that I was talking to goes, "You have a really unique sounding voice." And I was like, "Aha! I'll do a podcast." And that's kind of where that originally came from. And I started, in a room with a microphone and just started talking to people and interviewing people I know. And, from there, it was talking into really a box for a while, an empty room, because one of the hardest things about doing this is getting the word out about your content and getting people who actually might even give a crap to know that you exist, never mind to get them to subscribe and to regularly engage with what you're making. That's the hardest part. And for a long time, it was just doing nothing. And it started to gain a little bit of steam. And I was like, oh, wow, 10 people subscribed to my podcast. This is cool, right? And now I have 500, so it's not that much more. But go and subscribe anyway. So
absolutely, link is down in the description or in the show notes.
So I had this crazy experience where a big time blog did a list of like the top 10 IT podcasts, and they listed mine on there. And all of a sudden I had 40,000 downloads in a matter of weeks. And I was like, oh my God, wow, what the hell just happened? And, from there it started rolling and it started really picking up steam and whatnot. And in the middle of the pandemic, I had stopped doing the podcasting completely because for my day job running IT for the real estate company, they were at the time 0% remote. I had invested in cloud services because that's where the industry was going and went and where they needed to be. And the mentality that I had was operate as if we're remote because they have 100 small offices. They're basically remote. In the olden days, they were hosting everything in-house, and they were hosting it in a building that has power issues. Like they would have regular power outages, and you're hosting the files. Nobody can work anywhere. And so, getting everything out to the cloud was a huge priority for us. And when the pandemic hit, now it was everybody has to work from home. So thankfully, we had already leaned into cloud services, and I had to do a big lift of getting a lot of the files off of the remaining internal servers. But at least we had the infrastructure there. The infrastructure we didn't have was laptops. And teaching people how to use a lot of this stuff and to getting people, used to using video calling, Google Meet, instead of the phone. We had a 700% increase in usage of Google Meet within the first couple of weeks of the pandemic. Like we were not using it before. And so all of my focus day and night, every waking minute that I had that I wasn't spending with my kids and my wife and even then some was dedicated to just figuring out how to do this and training people. I had daily office hours, and it was like I had no spare time, as many other people out there, I'm sure, experienced as well. There was no spare time. It was everybody all in, all hands on deck. This is what we got to do. And so 9 months later, I realized I miss it. I kind of miss doing the podcast. I miss that connection. We weren't going outside much, so we weren't really talking to people. I miss the connection with other IT people. I used to go to a lot of events. I love networking, both the wire kind, but also interpersonal, like we're doing now. And for me, that was a little bit of an outlet for a lot of people who did pick up content during the pandemic, because I got to connect with people and I got to interview them and to talk to them. And so I started doing that again. And about 2 years ago, December time, I was driving down the road and I was like, man, there is so much that is being updated on Google Workspace. I can't keep up. Every day there's like 3 new features that are coming out, and I don't know when they launch, when they don't launch, what they are, what they apply to, if I have access to them or not. And I was like, somebody should really do, a blog or a newsletter or a show or something about that. And then I was like, oh, maybe I should do it. And so then I started Google Workspace Recap, which was my second show. And that was designed to be a weekly show going through everything that Google releases every week for Google Workspace, for professional, companies that are paying for it, not Gmail, obviously for Gmail, but not just the consumer stuff, all the work stuff, as well as news and analysis and utilizing our experience in working with different organizations and things like that. And now, 2.5 years and over 100 episodes weekly. It's still going strong. Have not missed a week, so that's pretty awesome.
I was going to say, I was just watching the show the other day, and you mentioned you had to miss, you guys have been all over the place during some of these episodes, yet you've never missed a week. So just kudos to you on there. Way more than me.
Thank you. It's not been easy. In fact, like this week, I still haven't even gotten out this week's episode. That's what I'm going to do after this. Is it rendered overnight, and then I had to be at the office because still dealing with the network meltdown. So I went into to deal with that today, and I got home here, and the render that it did overnight actually didn't finish because I don't know, something with Final Cut Pro on the Mac, it doesn't render the final half or the second half of the show if you're running low on space. But there's 56 gig free. It's whatever. So, the trials and tricks of issues with doing this are always an adventure. And so that was show number 2. And then I was, and this was, kind of revisiting an idea that I had back in 2017 of building a content network, a bunch of different shows to do what we were trying to do with the conference, but all the time and available for everybody on the internet. And when I started getting into content, I was like, wait a minute, I had this idea before. I really want to do this. And so then I started revisiting the idea of building out an actual content network. And that's when the Tab Geeks Content Network started to form. And I wanted to do more shows, but I didn't want me to be the only one doing them. I didn't want to be hosting every single show because that is way too much bandwidth. I do not have the time for that. Now that I've stepped back, I do have more time, but I've been amplifying my work in other areas instead of taking on more shows. Although I do have another one coming, but that's a side note for later. So then I started show number 3, which is SaaS Showdown, where I tapped 2 unbelievably knowledgeable community experts who are just rock stars in the SaaS space, and said, hey, I've been in a lot of meetings with you guys. You have phenomenal chemistry, and it's all Zoom. I've never met any of these people before. Phenomenal chemistry on camera, and you sound great together. You bounce ideas off each other really, really well. Discussions are awesome. How would you like to do a show? I'll edit and produce it. And they're like, well, actually, we've been kind of thinking about getting into some personal branding stuff and, building this out, whatever. And so they signed on. And so now we're in season 3 with them. And we just cranked up the marketing and the branding around them and made it look a little bit more polished, a little bit more corporate, so that it's a solid one. And now, so that's show number 3. I have shows 4, 5, and 6 all in progress here.
That's crazy.
One is going to be a cybersecurity show, which is going to be, you're going to love it. It's going to be super sassy. It's 2 women hosts that are just rock stars. And they're already friends from before, and you literally wind them up and there's your show. It just goes. It's amazing. So that's we're putting the pieces together for that. I have another show that we're doing with the ITDRC. I don't know if you've heard of them. They are my favorite nonprofit, the Information Technology Disaster Resource Center. And what they do is basically after there's a disaster, whether it's natural or otherwise, they will move in and set up communications, whether it's from a satellite uplink that they do on site or nowadays through Starlink, or if there's an active connection, they'll build out Wi-Fi networks for all of the relief people that come in to help. So, for example, I deployed with them during the campfire in Northern California, where 60,000 people, the entire town of Paradise, was destroyed, and everybody was. You just had 60,000 literal refugees that had nothing except for what was on their backs and in their cars, and ITDRC deployed and set up an entire campground network so that these people could connect and tell their families that they were alive, and so that they could get the resources that they need to access. Because like everything else these days, relief organizations also operate in the cloud, and you know what you can't access if you don't have internet? The cloud. And so that's where this became really, really powerful, the work that they do. And it's not just that. They also help these organizations get set up on site. They provide printers, they provide laptops. They work through donations with all the major tech companies, Microsoft and Google and the cell networks as well, T-Mobile and AT&T and Verizon and whatnot. And so I'm starting to do a podcast with them. One of these days we'll finish putting it together. It's a slow burn, basically going through and detailing a lot of the work that they're doing, the impact that it has. And a lot of times after there's, several other organizations out there that do this as well. And oftentimes, unfortunately, after the press moves on and people start to forget that tragedy happened, I mean, the people on the ground are still trying to recover. ITDRC are still there. They were still on site for over a year later before they finally demobilized and moved on and put resources in other areas. And they have thousands of volunteers nationwide. And if you're interested, definitely go and check them out, itdrc.org. So hoping to do a podcast with them soon. And then, we'll see what other shows come from there on out. So yeah, several of them.
you by all means have your plate completely full. Like, I mean, it's so cool that
I just had twins. So.
Oh, holy cow!
That's under my eyes.
Yeah, I understand completely. I mean, I got 3 kids of my own, and yeah, it takes a special person to be able to do this. Not only do you work a full-time job, and you have this wonderful network full of resources trying to help people get more information about the field. You have a family, and it takes a toll. So definitely, if you guys haven't already, go check out the link in the description. Go subscribe to one of his channels. Absolutely.
Yeah, it has been helpful that I have taken a step back, because now I'm not full time at the real estate group. I'm now 50% time. So every other day means that I have a bit more time to put into this, which is mostly going to just editing. Honestly, if somebody wants to sponsor us so that we can hire an editor, I swear I'll put out 100% more content.
I absolutely. There's just not enough time in the day. I can completely relate. Absolutely. So, we talked about, for people looking to get in the field, starting out the help desk. The help desk is really kind of that key pivotable. Is that the word I'm looking for? Anyways, yeah, pivotal thing to like really get started in the field. What is some other things people can do that are like really ambitious, that want to really kind of jumpstart the career and like make the big bucks here in the IT field?
So I would say that one of the most undervalued resources today is YouTube. It's the modern day library, and everybody has access to it, whether it's on your phone or it's on your computer or your tablet. There is so much content that's out there. And unfortunately, there's only 10 or 20 of us that are still doing it regularly. And the podcast world is a similar story. But the content still lives on forever is the thing, though. Exactly. That's kind of where I was going with that. It's like there are people who made things in the past who have since moved on and either retired or whatnot. Their content is still there. It's evergreen. And okay, fine. Some of it's aging a little bit because this is IT. And this train never stops, right? But that being said, there's still the basics. Like everything that's built today, with the exception of AI and a couple of other very, very edge industries, is built on all of those concepts from previous generations. And, whether it's networking or it's cloud or it's infrastructure or, computers, a lot of that, especially on the back end, when you really get in deep, is really built on very old school concepts. And so definitely YouTube, as just anything that you're interested in learning, just like you would Google it, YouTube it. Just search for it on YouTube, and you'll start to find you have, a couple of favorite hosts that you follow, a couple of channels that of, full of this stuff. And some of them are really obscure. It'd be like, I've heard of, I'm blanking on his name now. Professor Messer, was it?
Professor Messer,
yeah, it's like a huge, well-known, channel amongst hardcore IT folks, but I'd never heard of him before that. Like, I watch a lot of YouTube.
Exactly.
It had never been even served to me. But so many people have found him by just looking up different concepts, and he goes deep on his explainer videos.
Super deep.
Yeah. And that's the kind of stuff that I think really is going to put somebody ahead today. Is like, for example, I mentioned using Ubiquity at over 100 locations before. I taught myself Ubiquity through YouTube. I just went on a bunch of different channels and watched here's how to set up a complete Ubiquity system from start to finish. Those videos are amazing. Keep making those videos every single year, because the tech keeps changing, and there are so many people that don't have access to the stuff to play around with, or don't have a corporate environment or somebody to teach them, and they're not teaching you this in school. They're not teaching you how to set up a Ubiquity system in class. This is how you learn. And so that's kind of I said before at the top of the show here, I don't remember if we were recording at that point or not, never stop learning. And the way that I've been able to do so much is through learning all of these things and constantly just looking into and being interested in all these new areas and things like that. And so, even if it's an hour a day or an hour a week that you're working on a passion project or something that you're interested in, you want to be playing with things and tinkering with things and learning new things and just figuring it out yourself. And honestly, if you have someone else that you can do it with and you can help teach them, that cements it really fast in your mind. One of the best ways for you to learn is to try and teach someone else, because then you're like, wow, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. And then you go and you look up 8 other things, and now you've learned 8 other things related to this thing. And now you still don't know what you're talking about, but now you know 8 more things. And that's like the entire field in a nutshell there. But definitely YouTube, certifications as well. Certifications is an interesting topic here, and I know that you've talked about certifications in the past on your show.
Absolutely.
Some people hate them. I don't know why, but some people hate them. Some people love them. Some people are like, they're okay for getting your first job or whatever. Certifications are great, especially if you are just starting out, because it gives you the opportunity to be exposed to a lot of this stuff where you go, oh, I know nothing about that. Let me write that down. And then you can go and learn more about that later. And building out that foundation will help you as you continue along your career.
Well, and not only that is, a lot of people who are just starting out don't have the actual experience, have never worked in the field. And this is a way to actually prove that knowledge. It's not just you saying it. You have a piece of paper that actually says, hey, I actually know how to do this.
Yeah. And the best certifications will encourage you and guide you through setting up a home lab, which I 100% believe in.
Absolutely.
And, I've got a rack here and lots of toys around me, and yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I think almost every time someone asks me about certifications, I'm like, build a home lab. There's a YouTuber, Dwan Lightfoot, who's coined the phrase lab every day. And I love it. A lab every day. And that's the people that are successful are truly labbing every day. They're constantly tinkering with something. They have some test environment that like, I wonder if that's going to work. Remember, test in a lab, not in production.
Yeah, exactly.
I need to make a t-shirt that says that.
Yep. So certifications, and one of the great things that comes with certifications is that they will guide you through setting up the home lab. And some of them that are cloud certifications will give you free access to a cloud lab, to an environment just for you to do and learn the cert, to learn their platform. And if they don't,
absolutely,
you can get free trials pretty much endlessly. Email addresses are easy to come by. Just get a new email, more time in a lab. Like, you want to test out being an admin for Google Workspace? 30 days, sign up, go for it. There's a free version now. Like, you can do that. And, all of the Google certifications, as far as I know, they give you access to a system to play around in. I recently did for on my Workspace Recap show, we did a interview with the creators of the Chrome OS Professional Administrator Certification, which just came out. And on that show, one of the guys on the team actually said, if you don't have a Chromebook to use, get in touch and we'll send you one. Like, they want us to learn. They want to make access to this so freaking easy. You just have to try. You just have to go. You just have to sign up. You just have to start. Just do it. Just try something. And whether it's the device you already have, whether it's, okay, how would I do something with my iPhone, for example? Or if you have an Android phone, man, you can do all kinds of stuff on there. Or you have a computer at home. What kind of computer do you have? What are all the things I can do on here? Just play around with things, and then go and learn what you can do with them, and then turn that into, helping other people. And then the word will get around that, hey, this person really knows what they're talking about when it comes to this, that, and the other thing. And it'll start small, and then that, foundation that we keep talking about, that just keeps growing over the years. So definitely YouTube channels, certifications, and test, constantly be learning, constantly be testing and playing around with things. That's how I would do it.
Absolutely. And, I can personally attest to YouTube being a great resource. And, you'll often hear the phrase here in IT that if you don't know something, Google it. You're not expected to know everything. Google is your number one friend. Mm-hmm. But I think YouTube is becoming more and more so because, you're not only just reading someone else's write-up, but someone's actually created a course teaching step-by-step, taking you through the process. And that's really great for a lot of the different open source softwares out there nowadays. Open source is become, I think, more and more popular and more common you see in the workplace, depending on the type of environment you work in. And a lot of times there's not a professional certification behind these open source softwares, so there's not like a structured way to learn them. You have to rely on the community to teach you, hence the phrase community taught. And there's softwares like Proxmox, which is a hypervisor that is an open source software. I completely taught myself how to use it, all the ins and outs, via YouTube videos, and became really well versed in it. And there's some amazing content creators out there that just are giving this away for free. This content is free, readily accessible. There is literally no reason you shouldn't be constantly learning it because money is not an issue.
Right. Yeah. And one more that I will add here that is also critical for exposing you to new, topics, ideas, and just the way things work is communities. You mentioned it there. Join lots of communities, whether it's in person, meetup.com, or, any of the meetups that are happening from any, local IT groups that are out there or things like that. There's a bunch of them, to virtual, Discord, Slack. I have a Slack community myself, for Tab Geeks. There's lots of other communities out there. And one of the most amazing things that happens there is you have other admins that are in there that are going to talk to you simply because you're in there. They don't care who you are. They don't care that you've never done this before. They don't care that you don't have a job and that you're in your mother's basement and that you're 14. Who the hell cares, man? You're talking tech.
Right.
This is our language. This is what we love to do. And the best kept secret is we love talking about it, right? And
the tech community is one of the most friendliest communities out there, I think, for the most part, I should say. There is
not the cyber side. They're a bunch of assholes.
No.
So don't even.
Well, and if you start going down the Reddit, if you start going down the Reddit hole too far, you're going to find some scary stuff there. But the cyber community, like we understand everyone is learning, not just cybersecurity. I mean, the IT community. We understand everyone's got to start somewhere, and everyone's got to learn. Everyone's going to ask that quote unquote dumb question at some point in time, and we're all more than happy to help everyone out.
Yep. Yeah. And, here's the thing. You and I had to start, in our bedrooms with computers we picked up from parts in the street with, running Windows, 95, right? And, oh, look, this stick of RAM are interchangeable. Hey, that's cool. And then, whoops, that exploded in my face. Like, kids today are accelerating so much faster and so much further than we ever could have even dreamed of because of access, because of exposure to all of these different things. Dude, a couple $100 Chromebook and an internet connection, which you can get for free at libraries or Starbucks or wherever, and the world is your oyster. Like an iPhone is a freaking supercomputer, man. And so one of the things that what I was saying about communities is that, like, you're now, by joining that community, you don't even have to interact. Just watch, just lurk. You're watching real world expertise, employees who are paid $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 a year, showing up and going, I can't figure this out. Anybody have a solution for this? Anybody seen this before? Or my best example of community working together. I love this. A couple of years ago, I think it was 2019. All right, I forget. A couple of years ago, if any of you remember, there was a major scam malware that was going around where everybody was getting emails that looked like they were comments from Google Docs. You've been tagged in such and such a Google Doc. Click here.
I remember those.
And it went to the Google login screen, and it was real. It looked like it really was part of their system, and it was actually a hosed email. And what ended up happening is that was just somebody was using docs to send out to lots of different email addresses and then rerouting them to be able to put loaded packages on people's machines and malware and so on. And what ended up happening is in several communities that I'm in, everybody, all the IT folks started logging on going, what the hell's going on? Has anyone seen this? Oh yeah, I see this is happening. Oh yeah, we got a bunch of those too. Within hours, I don't know, it was less than 3 hours, the community had all worked together using all of our expertise and knowledge and analysis tools at our disposal, and had isolated the set of IPs of where all of this traffic was coming from and going to, and on our networks managed to ban all of the involved IPs hours before Google acknowledged there was an issue, never mind shut it down.
That's crazy. That's
Without
awesome.
community, you're sitting there, I don't know. Like, yeah, exactly. The community came through, banded together, and shut down a massive worldwide attack for our systems. We were saying, we're like, all right, sucks to be you guys. No, a lot of people were making content on this and telling people and sharing it because that's what we like to do. But the fact is, that community came together and was able to do that hours before Google was even like, all right, fine, yeah, there's something going on here. We're looking into it. That's my favorite example.
That's so cool. And yeah, absolutely. And we could go on for hours, but I want to be respectful of your time. If people want to connect with you or learn more about your shows and stuff like that, where can they find you?
Sure. So on YouTube, all the shows are on the same channel. I've actually gotten some flack for that, but I like it so far. Everybody can come to one place. It's at Tab Geeks. So TAB, where is it? TABGEEKS, which stands for Tech and Business Geeks, which is what the name comes from. On Twitter, also at Tab Geeks, although less active on that one. You can find me on Twitter, Mr. J Nowlin, or tabgeeks.com. And definitely, if you're on the podcast side, all of the shows I mentioned are available on all major podcast platforms. If you like the video side, obviously you can watch them on YouTube. Although Spotify is really pushing the whole video thing, so I've got the videos on Spotify video podcasts as well. And yeah, I've got contact forms on my website if they want to hire us for consulting or just ask questions or join the Slack. Absolutely. Try to be as open and available as possible.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing your wealth of knowledge with our community, and you're welcome back anytime on the show. Absolutely.
Thank you. My pleasure. And I'm going to flip the script on you, and we're going to have you on Heroes of IT, and we'll hear your story.
Awesome. Absolutely. Anytime. Give me a shout out. So,
all right. Sounds
all right.
good.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you guys found this video informative, and until next time, keep learning.